What's good, my dudes, and welcome back to the driveway, where today we are back at Humble Hyundai, once again in the north end of Houston, Texas, to do something a little bit more unusual than normal. You see, usually when I'm out here, I'm filming something like a Tucson or a Santa Fe, or maybe even something a little cooler like the new Veloster N, but instead, today, we're focusing on this, a 2017 Toyota 86. Now, to the untrained eye, it looks like just about any other 86 that you could find on any other dealer lot, but this one has a bit of a trick up its sleeve. So today, we're not only going to give you a quick walkthrough of it, but more importantly, we're going to take you guys out on the road in this thing and show you why this one is truly a sleeper wolf in sheep's clothing. Alrighty guys, so let's get to it. And first things first, before we start talking about today's subject matter, which there is quite a lot to talk about with this particular car here, I do want to apologize to any and all viewers who may be noticing that little kind of blurry spot on my camera's lens. Unfortunately, my GoPro Hero 3 that I mainly use for my reviews suffered a scratch on the front of its lens, and unfortunately I just don't have the money to get that fixed yet. So right now, we're just going to have to make do with what we've got, but I do just want to apologize in advance. But now, let's talk about this car. Now, to begin with the basics, a normal Toyota 86 like this one is a pretty fun car in its own way. Makes about 200 horsepower or so from a 2-liter naturally aspirated flat 4-boxer engine co-developed with Subaru. But in 2017, when Toyota switched from the Scion FRS to the Toyota 86 name, I just think the car got a lot better looking and indeed just added a bit more of that fun factor that sports car enthusiasts like myself have come to love. Now, it's fair to say that the 86 that we're looking at here is definitely one of the more basic ones, and you can tell by things like these smaller 17-inch machine-faced and painted alloy wheels. We've got cloth bucket seats on the inside, and really there were only 2 options on this particular car, one of which is kind of sad, being that this is the more expensive 6-speed automatic version, not the 6-speed manual like most enthusiasts prefer, but also this one does have the upgraded navigation system. But going back to the design for just a second, I really do love how much more aggressive this thing is. Things like these updated LED daytime running lights, the projector headlights with the 86 engraved in them, LED turn signals, and just how much more aggressive this front fascia is with things like these fangs that stick out of the front bumper here. Now, when you look at this car from the back, again, the design is a very familiar one. It carries over all of the same styling cues that most enthusiasts loved about the Scion FRS, which of course the 86 became after 2017. Now, this particular car does have a couple things. We have LED taillights here in the back. We have the nice little lip spoiler here coming off the back end, and things like this built-in diffuser down here at the bottom. Now, there is one slight giveaway that this car does have a few little extra goodies, and that is the NVIDIA high-performance exhaust that's been fitted to this one. Now, this is pretty common for FRSs and 86s these days, having maybe the factory Borla exhaust upgrade, or perhaps one that their owners have installed themselves. And this one actually sounds pretty darn good when you start it up. So now sitting here inside the 86, there are a couple of things of note that I wanted to mention before we take this thing out for a drive. For starters, the interior of this car is very small. It's pretty apparent from the outside, but when you're actually in here, if you're a taller person like myself, where I'm 6'1", it can be a little bit on the cramped side. But then again, I feel like I'm in a fighter jet. Everything is within reach so easily here. Everything from like these drive mode buttons, you've got sport and snow, you've got a track mode, and even the gear selector, the air conditioning controls, the multimedia interface, and just everything feels so driver focused, and that's what I really enjoy about the FRS and the BRZ. A couple of other things that I really like. I like the gauge cluster in here, things like the center mounted white tachometer, a signature of both the FRS and the 86, and I really actually like this one compared to the gauge cluster in the BRZ, which is a little bit more plain, I guess, in my book. But other than that, everything between the BRZ and the 86 definitely does feel just exactly the same as you would expect. Now, like I said, my tester here is the 6-speed automatic, which I'm really not too happy about, but at the same time, I have had a very small test drive in this car myself prior to actually coming on camera to talk about it, and I gotta say, surprisingly, this 6-speed automatic can actually hold the power in this car pretty darn well, and you'll see what I mean here when we actually take this car for a drive. But speaking of, there's no point in just sitting here in a quiet car, so we'll actually just go ahead and turn on the power so you can see everything as it works here. As you can see, the whole dash lights up. You've got your speedometer over here, your odometer and gear selector over here in the center. And then coming over here to the center console, we get to the upgraded navigation system. I just wanted to show you guys how this functions really quickly once it actually loads. Now, the graphics for the navigation are pretty typical Toyota, and they're kind of a little lackluster if you ask me. They don't really feel like Toyota's best. But then again, this car isn't about luxury features, it's about driving, and that is where we're gonna head next. So one turn of the key, and we should get a pretty good taste of what we're in store for with this car. So now that we've got this puppy running, it's time to show you the real reason why this one is the true wolf in sheep's clothing, because you lift the hood and what do you see? Oh yeah, that's right. This car has an HKS GT V3 Supercharger kit along with a host of other goodies that the previous owner had professionally installed. In fact, the total bill on this car's engine came out to about $10,000 to $12,000 in modifications alone. I mean, I think even the Supercharger kit's like $5 grand in and of itself. But there were a couple of things that I was kind of curious about, one of which was that. The Crawford Performance air-to-oil separator. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is, that basically means that instead of the oil going back to the intake, it goes directly back into the engine, allowing the engine to be lubricated at all times properly. But supposedly, with all these modifications in place, this car makes something like 350 plus wheel horsepower, which means we've got about 400 plus horsepower going on here in the engine bay. So there's no time like the present. Let's close the hood and let's get this sucker out on the road. Alrighty guys, so we are in the 86 and I am actually very excited to be driving this car because I haven't really driven what I would call a tastefully modified car, much less one that looks as much of a sleeper as this thing does. I mean, you guys saw the outside. It doesn't look like anything other than a basic Toyota 86, but like I said, you turn the key, you get that nice little boxer growl. Makes me think I'm in a Subaru instead of a little rear-wheel drive Toyota sports car. But we're in the car, so let's set off and let's see what this little 86 can do. All right, so now we are on the open highway in the 86, and my God, does this car just ever want to go? I haven't even given it the bean jet or anything, but just coming away from a stoplight back there and getting on the highway, this car just jumps forward. It has that urge. It wants you to drive it. It wants you to go. And my goodness, just what a fun little car this is. Now, sticking more to my journalist side, I have to say that this car is very much a sports car through and through. The ride is quite stiff. It is very much what you would expect in a sporty two-door coupe like this. But at the same time, I'm actually surprised that the road noise isn't as intrusive as I thought it would be. And even better still, I'm surprised with that sort of loud or loud-ish NVIDIA exhaust that this car has. I'm actually surprised that it's not as droney as it would be. I'm currently loafing along at about 55 miles an hour, turning over about 1,500 RPMs, and just all I really hear is the road. I mean, I can barely get a little burble from the exhaust back there, but it doesn't have that raucous drone that you might get from some exhausts out there. Now, one other thing I must say is that being an enthusiast, if you're going to do these kind of performance modifications to a car, you have to go with the 6-speed manual. There really is just no other option in the book for me as far as what I feel this car deserves if it's going to be a true performance car. But I guess on the flip side of the coin, this does make it a slightly more usable vehicle. It does make it a little bit easier to drive in traffic. It makes it a little bit more of an easy daily driver. But there is no denying that all you have to do is reach down here, put this thing in sport mode, knock it over into manual, and knock the gears down a few cogs. I'll even open the window. Listen to this. Oh. And what's even better is when you get a nice little straight stretch of road that opens up to you after all these cars go by here. And let's give this thing the beans. Let's see what she can really do. Oh yeah. That's not even redline, guys. That's only like 5,500, 6,000 RPMs. This thing redlines at almost 8 grand. Oh man, what a rush. Now, because of the way, go ahead and roll the window up. Now, because of the way that this car is modified and the way that this transmission is set up, it almost feels like it has a shifter kit in it. It doesn't feel like it's got, you know, just a normal 6-speed auto in it. It doesn't feel like it's got that. It's not a pulse pounder. It's not one of those ones that throws your head back in the seat with 1,000 horsepower. It's not like a big Toyota Supra or anything, which, by the way, it kind of feels like the new Supra. I'm not gonna lie, it is kind of tight in here, but nevertheless, it doesn't feel like a big car, and it doesn't feel like it needs much to go. And I also have to say that the steering inputs on this thing are so precise. For, I mean, a 25, maybe $30,000 car, this thing drives as good as some of the $50,000 performance cars that I've had the chance to get behind the wheel of recently. The best part about all of this is that you barely notice that there's a supercharger on this thing. I mean, I didn't even hear it at first, but when you start it and it kind of comes down from the cold cycle, you'll hear just a little bit of a whistle. It just adds that little extra something. It's just so much fun, this car. It just puts a smile on your face. I mean, if this were a stock FRS or a stock 86, I mean, those are fun. They're a lot of fun in their own right. I mean, I remember driving the FRS when it came out back in 2013. But now here, this little thing just, this is what I feel the FRS should have been from the beginning. This is what it needed to be in the very beginning. There's no denying that this car needed a little bit more horsepower. I mean, something like, you know, an STI swapped 86 or an STI swapped BRZ. I think that would just be so much more fun as a stock package compared to driving this car and having to put more money into it and, you know, build more on the aftermarket scene. But the best thing about building a car to me is that you can build it to your own tastes. You can build it to what you feel that car should be. So for example, you know, maybe you have a stock one of these and you wonder, should I go turbocharged? Should I go supercharged? To me, I think this supercharger kit really does sort of liven the experience of the 86. It doesn't, oh. It never gets old. I want to be a pro right now, but it's just so much fun driving this thing. Oh my goodness, I'm getting carried away. But anyways, what I was saying is that if I had to pick between a turbocharger or a supercharger, yes, the turbo has that excitement, that rush of acceleration when it throws you back in the seat. But a supercharger, I think, is the best of both worlds because it provides the power that you want, but it doesn't have any of the lag or the drawbacks or anything like that. It doesn't have any of that. It has the ability to be used almost like a stock engine, but when you really want it to be and you really want that exhilarating punch, that's what the supercharger's for. I still have such a profound respect for the 86. It came in at a time when Toyota was building just RAV4s and Camrys and didn't really sound like they were building like an exciting car. But then they came out with this, and to me, it has swept the youth market by storm. And not only that, just the aftermarket scene. The aftermarket scene has exploded for this car, and there's no denying that with cars like this, and even the new Supra being a slightly bigger 86, if you can call it that. I just think there's so much potential in these cars, and that is why we love them so much. That'll never get old. I swear, that will never get old. How about one last pull, huh? Windows up. Oh, that sounds so good. And one last thing too. Normally I'm a fan of big V8s or, you know, cars that make a bit more raucous noise than something like this. But for just a little piddly 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, I love it. I absolutely love this package. Like, Toyota, what are you thinking building this car naturally aspirated? What are you thinking? We need a hot version of this car like stat. And I don't mean the Supra, I mean this car. So, Toyota, if you're watching, you got another fan on your side. Where's the fun in it? Anyways, guys, we are back here at our destination, and I hope each and every one of you guys has enjoyed all of my ramblings, my smiles, and most of all, this wicked little supercharged Toyota 86. Now, if you guys like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, and also be sure to click that subscribe button down below for many more videos like this and more to come in the future. But in the end, once again, a huge thanks goes out to the folks here at Humble Hyundai for allowing me to at least drive this vehicle and experience what it's like to drive a Toyota 86 that's been built properly, tastefully, and is still a hell of a lot of fun. But from the north end of Houston, Texas, I'll see you guys in the next video, and take care, everybody, and stay safe.